Sorry, that's really loud.
Well, that's the idea.
Yeah.
I almost forgot that.
Good evening. City of New Haven meeting agenda for Thursday, February 1st, 2024. 6 p.m. Meeting can be viewed on the Board of Alders YouTube Aldermanic Chamber. This is the City Services and Environmental Policy Committee meeting. The City Services and Environmental Policy Committee of the Board of Alders will meet in person on Thursday, February 1st, 2024 at 6 o'clock p.m. in the Board of Alders chambers located at 165 Church Street, second floor, New Haven, Connecticut, to hold the following workshop. Workshop updating the New Haven Board of Alders on recent state legislative developments concerning early voting and the Voting Rights Act in Connecticut affecting the upcoming 2024 elections. And hear and act on the following items. Item number 1, LM-2024-0044, resolution of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the city to apply for and accept a grant from the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development in the amount of $999,000 and to partner with Ancora 265 South Orange Holdings LLC to support the environmental remediation of the property located at 265 South Orange Street. Item 2, LM-2023-0603, resolution of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the mayor to sign a master municipal agreement for construction with the Connecticut Department of Transportation for a 10-year period. Item 3, LM-2023-0619, resolution of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the mayor to apply for and accept funding from the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Connecticut DEEP, and sign any associated state agreements, agreements with contractors, and other documents that may be desirable or necessary, including any subsequent amendments to agreements concerning the 2023 State Diesel Emissions Reduction Act, also known as DERA, for the purchase of an electric street sweeping vehicle. Per order, Honorable Anna M. Festa, Chair. Attest, Honorable Michael Smart, City Town Clerk. These items are on file and available in the office of the City Clerk, room 202 at 200 Orange Street, New Haven, Connecticut 06510. For accessibility-related accommodations, please call 203-946-7651V or 203-946-8582 TTY TDD. Public comment and testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavencT.gov before 2 o'clock p.m. on the day of the meeting. This meeting may be viewed on the New Haven Board of Alders YouTube page. I am Anna Festa. I'm the chair of the City Services and Environmental Policy Committee. Welcome, everyone. This evening, we have some new alders on this committee. Welcome. I will allow them to introduce themselves at this time, starting to my right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Connie Smith, and I'm the alder for Ward 9.
Sal Punzo, Alder, Ward 17.
Troy Streeter, Ward 21.
Kiana Flores, Ward 1.
Great, thank you. And I have some seasoned alders that are up here, as well as some new alders. Don't worry, we will get through the meeting. I will give direction as to how it works as we move along. As you saw, we have a workshop and then 3 items. The only challenge we have tonight is the city engineer has requested to be heard first because he has a 6:30 Zoom meeting or
With
meeting
the alders, yes.
with the
Different
alders. And generally, he's very efficient, so I apologize because I know I promised the workshop folks that I would take you first, but you will be on next.
Okay, Jim.
Sorry.
So you owe that. Direct engineering, Giovanni's in, and of course, you all know the way it
Yes.
works, name and address for the
Yes,
record,
Giovanni's
please.
in, City Engineer, 95 Soundview Terrace. Good evening, Madam Chair, and again, thank you very much for taking me out of order. And I promise this will be a quick item. This is regarding the Master Municipal Agreement for construction with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. This is for a 10-year period. Probably more notable on this item is what it doesn't do than what it does. It does not authorize any projects, specific projects that will be done separately on a per project basis before you, the Board of Alders. It doesn't authorize any specific funds or anything. All it is a standard boilerplate that gets attached to every specific project for the next 10 years that is funded by the Department of Transportation of the state of Connecticut for infrastructure in New Haven. So how this works is that you would authorize the mayor to sign the 10-year master municipal agreement, and that's sort of all the general terms and conditions. And then let's say that we were doing a project on Whitney Avenue, which is something the board has already authorized. We would come back to the Board of Alders and submit for the specific project to get authorization to sign what is called a project authorization letter, which is an instrument defined within the master municipal agreement that contains the specific terms for a particular project. So for example, for roadway A, it would say, this project authorization letter is for these improvements on roadway A, and it's this amount of money that we are granting for that project. So that is the specific project authorization letters are a separate item that will come to you over the next 10 years as the projects come up. This is purely the boilerplate contract. With that, if there are any questions, we don't have much ability to modify what's in that contract. It's sort of a take it or leave it thing, which is very typical in our relationship with the state of Connecticut. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's just the way of the world.
Okay. You're always very direct. And before we continue, I just want to recognize Alder Marks, who is also on the committee. Welcome. Just quick, so this is just something that we agree to for the next 10 years that does it allow the DOT to hire who they want, or?
No, this is
a
a vehicle for them to give us money through a project authorization letter, which is usually about 2 pages, rather than having to draft and approve and review the thick stack of paper that's in front of you each and every time. So basically, we're agreeing to the form of the agreement now, and then the specifics of each agreement come through the project authorization letter.
Okay, so this kind of just eliminates one step for the next 10 years.
It's a lot of paperwork that it eliminates many times for the next decade.
Okay.
And I will note, we had one previously starting in 2013 that went through 2023.
Okay, perfect. And just before we move on, our majority leader, Richard Furlow, has joined us. At this time, I will open up for questions from committee members. So raise your hand if you wish to ask a question. Alder Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Zinn, for presenting this evening. One just quick question. In this version of the contract, has anything changed? I know that we don't have a lot of room to be able to edit it, but is there anything that's changed that is worthy of note?
I think there's changes to some of the state law references and things like that have happened. I don't think there's a material change in how our relationship with the state operates. Updates a lot of the references and some of the policies and procedures that have happened in the last 10 years. I don't think that there's really a material change that I would be very concerned about.
Thank you.
Any further questions from committee members? Okay. Seeing none, thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? And is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? For a third time, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Please come forward. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the workshop. So I will welcome the City Clerk's Department as well as the Registrar's Department. And I will also acknowledge that my Vice Chair of the committee is here, Alder Singh. Thank you for joining us. Good evening. Ooh, that's something. You know okay, sorry about that. It must have been Giovanni's Zinn.
For Al because he took my paperwork and so many copies. I don't have a packet right there. It's
Yes,
Okay.
I'm gonna be reading directly from that.
Okay, so while we wait for the registrar paperwork, if you could just introduce yourself, state your name and address for the record, please.
Mamie Gardner, Deputy City Clerk, 13 May Street, New Haven, Connecticut.
Chanel Evans, Registrar of Voters, Democratic, 14602 Gospel.
Thank you. And since we have the city clerk's information, do you mind?
Sure.
Maybe we'll just start.
I got bumped already. It's fine. No, I'm joking. Go ahead. Do your thing.
I appreciate your patience.
What I'm gonna be reading is from the Secretary of State, questions from the Zoom meetings that the Secretary of State and the town clerks and I believe the registrars have. And there are questions really that I'm sure that you all wanted, or the public would ask. It's related to the early voting and frequently asked questions. So with that being said, the first page, it says, what is early voting? Early voting allows you to vote in person safely and securely before election day. That's what early voting is. Which election will be the first to have early voting available? Early voting will begin with the presidential primary. There is a calendar on the website. The city clerk has a calendar as well. The early voting dates for this election have been modified to reflect the Good Friday holiday and Easter. Early voting will be held Tuesday, March the 26th, Thursday, March 28th, and Saturday, March 30th. The presidential preference primary day is Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024. What should I expect, or what should the residents expect at their early voting location, which will be determined by the registrar of voters? When you arrive at the early voting location, you will check and be verified as an eligible voter. You will then receive your ballot with an envelope. You will complete your ballot at a privacy booth and seal it in the approved envelope. Before you leave, you will place the sealed envelope in a secure receptacle as instructed by the election officials. Ballots will be secured and unopened until election day. When will ballots be counted? Ballots cast during early voting will be sealed and stored securely in each town. They will be opened and counted on election day. How does early voting differ from voting by absentee ballot? Absentee ballot voting requires a reason, and usually on your application, it asks you why you want to vote. We call it early already, but it's absentee. From a list of things. Early voting is available to every eligible voter without a specific reason. You don't have to be sick. I mean, you don't have to be sick. You don't have to be sick. There's no excuse, okay, with the early voting. Just come in and vote. Early voting may be done only in person and not by mail or drop box. It's like a regular polling place. She will answer that. How many early voting locations will be in each town? That is up to the registrar. I can't answer that. But we will have at least one. Can I vote on weekends? Yes. Early voting includes Saturday and Sundays, according to the calendar for most elections. How is it ensured that people do not vote twice? The election official at your early voting location will record that you have cast your ballot, just like the absentee ballot. They do record you, brush you off, okay? And preventing you from voting early at any other location, submitting an absentee ballot or voting on election day. It says, can I register to vote during the early voting period? Yes, you can. You may register, and the registrar will explain that. During the early voting period before regular or general elections. For primary election details, see the instructions on my vote or the registrar of voters. Does early voting exist in other states? More than likely it does. Yes, although it's new in Connecticut, 46 other states already offer early voting. And it says what has changed. You can still vote absentee. You can still vote on election day. It just gives you an option. A few more days with no excuse to vote. Okay, those are the questions that people have. Behind these questions is the schedule of the early voting.
And all this information is on our website, on the city clerk's website.
This information is on the Secretary of the State's website. After we're done with the town committee race, we're gonna post this on our website.
Okay, and then just for clarification purposes, for the absentee ballot, is it like we have been doing, or now there is, or it goes back pre-COVID?
No, will stay the same.
So it stays the same post-COVID?
It stays the same.
So folks can fill out absentee ballots, put them in the boxes that we have set
Correct.
aside, so
Correct.
nothing with that really has changed?
No.
Okay.
A person is able to come into the office with an absentee ballot application, vote over the counter, or through the mail, as usual.
Okay.
Those things have not changed.
Okay, so the only thing that has changed is that we will now have the flexibility of early voting. And it sounds like we are late in the game with 46 states that have already implemented this. But better to be added than be last, right? Are there any questions for the city clerk's office right now? Alder Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for this really helpful information. This is really
Just
exciting.
turn the mic towards
Absolutely.
you. Hopefully we won't hear.
Okay. Thank you so much for this information. One question is, how will this really great information be promoted? And how can alders be helpful in helping to spread the word?
The registrar will give you some information, but
I wasn't sure if you were talking to her.
But this information that I have from the Secretary of State, we will post it on our website. We currently have information on the town clerk's website. The only addition is that the early voting will be posted there as well.
Thank you.
Any further questions for the city clerk's office? Alder Streeter?
Yeah, I don't have a question, I just have a statement. I just want to say that you do a fine job.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions from committee members?
You have a question? Look like you have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just swing the microphone so everyone can hear you.
I have many questions. Thank you. The question I think is going to be answered by our registrars. Where in New Haven? Is that coming in the next presentation?
Yes. Maybe we should hold off on any further questions, hear from the registrar, and then hopefully some of those questions.
Thank you.
So I mean, just for clarification, we do have two separate departments that manage different things, but at the same time, they also work together. But there are rules for the city clerk's office and there are rules for the registrar's office. So at this point, I'll just have our registrar go ahead and give her presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To try to answer your question on remembering, the same right now, currently it is under Secretary of State. The information that, I'm not sure if you all have it, places early voting handbook. This is a rough draft because everything is not super set in stone and something publicized from the state. Until there is clarity, full clarity, and not something that says draft, then we will post onto our website. And as May was saying as well, pertaining to let's get this DTC election out the way first. But as it does roll in, even if it's before DTC, we will try our best to make sure it is on our website as well. And I am also trying to find an intern, to kind of help with the social media portion because we do not have something active. I tried to start it, but yeah, it wasn't my suit, so my strong suit. So hopefully we can have intern put out that information. It has been open to have 2 locations, but because we are new and we don't expect a super huge turnout, because again, this is brand new, we will only have 1 location, which we will keep it at the heart of New Haven, which will be downtown. It will be at 200 Orange Street, room G2. We're polling location Ward 7 hosts their election. As May already stated, she kind of already said my whole presentation. It will be March 26th, 27th, 28th. Good Friday will not, and then it will go back on to the 30th. The hours will be from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. I'm not going to go over all the questions and everything about before early voting. You guys have that, and my door is always open. My phone is always open for you guys as well. If you have any follow-up questions pertaining to that. I also printed out, even though it's on the state website, there's a calendar that keeps getting updated. But this is the most recent calendar that kind of gives you everything. And as she stated, early voting will start for the PPP, which is called the Presidential Preference Primary, which will be held April 2nd. Early voting does not go to DTC election, and it does not go for referendums, even though New Haven doesn't do referendums. Either one of those, it does not qualify. I believe that's kind of what I have. Is there any questions that I can answer?
So just to clarify again, the early voting will take place only for the presidential election, not for the co-chair race that's coming up or any other race other than the primary for the presidential race. And I understand now that it will be both Democrat and Republican primary for the presidential.
Oh yeah, I forgot the process. Sorry, yeah, so May kind of squeeze a little bit of it in there. So the elector will come in, they will get their name crossed off. We have a system where we will put that they voted in our voting system, in our CVRS system. It will go into an envelope. And again, it's not actual voting, it does not go through a tabulator. It will go into the secure black box where the tabulators are connected to, but no tabulators will exist on early voting. It will go in that box. At the end of the night, those ballots will go into a secured ballot bag. It'll be stored away. Each night, each night will get their own bags. And I believe we have paperwork that the state will send us where we can log everything, and I'm pretty sure it'll become public once we submit it to the town clerk's office, and then those ballots are counted that night. If someone tries to go in and double vote, they will not, because we'll have something on a paper specifying that they already voted early voting, just like it would be if someone tried to do absentee voting. And if they want to go up to the polls that day and try, go for it. Their early voting ballot just won't get counted.
Okay.
Said a lot there.
Yeah, but I think, we've been through this process. So, just so we're clear, it sounds like the state is still getting their act together and trying to finalize the plans for the early voting portion of our voting rights. And once that is done, I know we have a draft copy, but once it's been updated and completed, it would be uploaded to not only the state, but also to the registrar and city clerk, or?
I'm going to speak for my own. Yes, I will upload it for the registrar's office and make it speak for theirs.
Okay, so we will have all this information more than likely after the DTC, the co-chair races.
If the state sends it before then, you got it. what we have, you guys can have. If it's after DTC, then that's what it'll be. But I hope to keep everyone updated in advance so that we are all on the same page. And if people have questions, they can give us a call. We're open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, except on recognized holidays.
Okay,
And our number is 203-946-8035.
we should know that one by heart. Okay, are there any questions from committee members? Alder Singh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you both for what you're doing. Will postcard be going out for the primary?
Yes, we're hoping to send them out by the end of February.
Thank you, Madam.
Next, I have Alder Marks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation and your work. I think it's exciting to have early voting. I want to share a concern that I have, and it's going to turn into the form of a question, please, which is how we can best present clear information to voters. I think, and I'd like you to confirm, that there are actually 4 voting dates between now and November. I think, question, that there's March. Can I try in the form of a question?
Go for it.
I think that March is going to be Democratic Town Committee Chair voting. I think that April will be presidential preference, essentially the presidential primary. I think that August will be primaries for other things, and then the general election. We'll share that I myself tried to calendar this for myself yesterday evening.
So
May I just turn?
if you look at this page, it's going to give you the dates.
Thank you, but I do have a question that maps off that. Thank you for sharing that. But I myself, I'll share, was able to find these dates rather easily. What I wasn't able to find, and took me almost an hour, was to attempt to determine what offices we were actually voting for these things. So particularly August 13th, I think is the most difficult one to try to determine. I think that I determined that Senator Murphy's seat is up at that point, as is Representative Delores, perhaps others. My question is, how and where can we get the best information, both publicly posted at the registrar or the clerks, and how can we get to voters a real clear and simple understanding of what offices we're actually voting for on each of these dates, because that was not readily available anywhere I could find, like I say, over an hour of searching. So are you able to share with us right now? I don't know if you have your own cheat sheet in your mind of what offices go back onto each of these. I'd like to hear that, but what is your plan to share what exactly we're voting for on each of these dates?
Thank you. So I've also been talking lately about getting positions, descriptions of positions, each elected official on what they do, because it's a separate meeting for that portion. But yes, I would love to put that on our website on who's on what. So for April, it would literally just be the president. For August, it would be a whole roster of us, the treasurer, controller, state reps,
U.S.
my position.
Congress,
Right.
U.S. Representative, all the federal
President.
seats.
Right.
I don't know the districts yet, but the federal seats, and the registrar of those.
Yeah, we're 4 years. President.
So those are the seats that's out there right now.
And if I,
For November, I mean, the primary will be in August, and then,
If we have a primary.
and if I may, just to follow up, would it be possible to indicate which federal congressional seat, which Senate
Right.
seat? Because it's my understanding, am I correct, that
everybody hasn't filed yet.
I've understood that only certain seats are up now? It's not both, correct, it's not both of our
Okay.
senators, it's only one of our senators, is that
Right.
correct?
Right.
But just a real understanding of which seats.
Which seats? Okay,
Would that be possible to do?
yes,
Thank you for your
yes.
entertaining the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Alder Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about same-day registration. I noticed that's listed in the facts, the FAQs, but I just want to make sure I totally understand, because I think we've all gotten that a lot of election day, someone wondering, can I register? just to confirm, it looks like it says that same-day registration will be available during general elections, during the early voting period, and on election day. But for primaries, they have to register the day before. Is that accurate, or maybe you could say it in a clearer way?
Yes, thank you. So there is no EDR during primaries. If you are unaffiliated, you have up until the day before early voting to register by noon with our office. The mail-in date is a little bit prior. I don't have that on hand. But again, the calendar that we gave specified those dates as well. There is no EDR on early voting, but there will be EDR for the November election. So it'd be the same process, basically come in, register, vote in this room here, and then once you're finished, the following election, you'll be voting at your own polling site. Hopefully I answered all of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? Okay,
I just have a statement.
go ahead, Alder Street.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to say, I come into your office all the time, and you're very resourceful, and I thank you for that.
I appreciate that.
So there were a few asks, and I think there are things that can be done, right? So for the August primary, to be sure we are specific on the seats that folks are voting on. You know, we generally, those of us that have been involved in the process know, but there's 135,000 New Haven residents, and God only knows what percentage really understand how it all works. So as much information that we can put online for reference would be extremely helpful. And of course, all these updates that, you know, you provided us some information, all this information, it's a lot. So anything that you can put online would be greatly appreciated too.
Agreed.
And I will ask committee members one more time if there are any questions. You know, we always appreciate you coming before us. This is important information to be shared. You know, our voting rights are our voting rights, and we all have to practice them and actually go out and vote. So any information you can provide is greatly appreciated. I'm going to open it up to the public. If you have anything else to share, please do so.
No, yeah, just basically as I state to you guys and before the committee all the time, if anyone have questions, any of your constituents have questions as well, don't third party it. Please have them call our office directly or send me an email or something. We're more than happy to communicate that. People get misinformation and it causes issues that does not need to even be there.
So if you don't mind sticking around until the public portion is complete, just in case there's anything we didn't address and you would like to address.
Sure.
So at this time, if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak, you probably want to back there. And I will remind the public and anyone who wishes to testify to state their name and address for the record. So I did see a hand up. If you could come forward, Ms. Janice. You may have a seat and just talk into the microphone so everyone can hear you. You don't have to get really close to it, but close enough for everyone to hear.
No booming, right?
No booming. You'll be fine. State your name and address for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Janice Underwood, 73 Woodside Terrace, New Haven. I just have a question about a point of clarification regarding absentee ballot reasoning. So there was a comment that it was going to be the same as before COVID. During COVID, is that correct? I see yes and I see no.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I was nodding my head in agreement with the question.
And what I'm concerned about is the reasoning why people can vote A/B. I don't want to give misinformation on the doors, no, and also tell our committee members when they're knocking on the doors what's okay and what's not.
So the understanding, and I can ask Mr. Reed for any clarification, is that nothing has changed since COVID.
So people can vote absentee without reason.
Correct.
Great.
Is that correct? Yes.
Correct.
Yes. So whatever we've been practicing in the last couple of years is
Okay.
what we will practice now as well. So nothing has changed. So folks will now, they'll still be able to do absentee ballot as we have been doing.
Okay,
The only new thing is the early voting.
Sure.
And the early voting will take place on the dates
on the
that,
presidential primary.
and only in the presidential primary.
Got that.
Presidential primary and then moving forward.
And there's no absentee voting for early voting.
No. Not for early
Not for
voting,
early.
let's be specific.
I know,
that
it's
we have-
confusing.
Yes, yes,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
The only problem with that is, the only problem is that the state has not updated the applications. The applications look the same, but you could still, you still don't have to have a reason to vote absentee.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? I see Aaron Good. And again, just a reminder, name and address for the record and then proceed to your testimony. Good evening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chairman and committee members. Aaron Good, 702 Quinnipiac Avenue. Just to address this issue about excuses for absentee ballots, my understanding, I mean, I follow these things pretty closely, you still do need an excuse. They did redefine the meaning of illness in the Connecticut general statute so that it can apply to things like fear of contracting an illness. You don't necessarily have to have COVID yourself, but you cannot want to appear in a public place because you have a fear of contracting it. Or if you're a caregiver for someone with COVID, that illness part, you can now select that as an excuse. So they redefine the meaning of that. You still do need an excuse, which is why this November we'll be having a constitutional amendment referendum on no excuse absentee ballot voting and legalizing that within the context of the state constitution. So I hope maybe that sheds some additional light on this issue. Most of my questions and concerns around the upcoming presidential primary and early voting just generally have to do with notifying and educating the public about the availability of this new voting option, early voting, how it works, what people need to do. I think we've established there isn't any information about that on the website. There are some details that still need to be worked out, but we do know what days there will be early voting. I think the better we start informing people about that, the better. I'll get into a little bit more detail about education, notification, outreach, et cetera. I just want to say I have a couple other areas where I guess I have some questions and concerns. The training of election workers, making sure that we have and we're recruiting personnel that we need for early voting, making sure that they attend all the, not just the required, but also any recommended trainings that there may be, making sure everyone is familiarizing themselves with all of the proper protocols around handling of the early voting ballots, security, chain of custody, et cetera. This is brand new. It's a brand new law. It's a brand new set of procedures, and it's important that all of our election personnel are not saying, well, I know that already, because no, this is not a refresher course. This is a new set of procedures. It's neither regular in-person election day voting nor is it absentee ballot voting. It's somewhere in between. I asked some questions too about whether we need to be looking more aggressively at the possibility of multiple early voting locations, which we are permitted to do under Section 1 of the early voting law with Public Act 23-5. I don't know the subsection, but it's page 4. I really urge you to look at that because it bears on your prerogatives as a board. It says in any municipality with a population of at least 20,000, the legislative body may hold a public hearing on whether to designate any additional location in such municipality for the conduct of early voting. So the registrars, the clerk, they're responsible for doing one location. If you want an additional location, you decide that's something that the city wants to do. It's important to our residents, your constituents. You have a prerogative to do that. You have the power to create more than one location for early voting. Something you might want to consider. It's probably not necessary or feasible for the presidential primary on April 2nd. I think there's a 120-day, advance notice requirement for that, but I think it's something we should consider for the general election, which we know will be a high interest, high turnout election. So I can send you the text of that. I'm sure Al can provide it, but I would definitely recommend you take a look. As I said earlier, my primary concern has to do with outreach and education. We're less than 2 months away from this. It's March 26th or whatever. We have early voting. As far as I know, there has been essentially no public education or outreach. On a scale of 1 to 10 of public awareness, we're a 1. Maybe we're a 0. Okay, we're not going to get to 10 before the end of March, but let's try to get to like 5. It would be unfortunate if we spent more than a decade getting this law passed. I spent 13 years working to get early voting. So it would be unfortunate just for me if, we spent all that time doing that and then our residents didn't use it because they didn't even know about it. So I hope that Secretary of the State would be doing a lot more vigorous outreach. The funding for that did not really materialize, and it sort of seems like it's every municipality for themselves. So where does that leave us? Well, I hope it's not all on the registrars. That's obvious. It's everybody. It's it's the Board of Alders. It's the ward co-chairs. It's groups like the New Haven Votes Coalition, League of Women Voters. But I do hope the registrars will present it to the Democratic Top Committee about how this all works at the ward committees, maybe at some of the community management teams. I know all of you will be doing what you can in your newsletters and other communications with constituents. New Haven Votes Coalition will be doing what we can with our partners, League of Women Voters, et cetera. So I hope we can all work together collaboratively on that effort for the benefit of all of our voters and residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the suggestions. Thank you for, you always have testimony that is valuable. So thank you for always being here. Did you have a question, Madam Chair?
That's just one question.
Absolutely.
Mr. Good, given his extensive expertise, interested in your opinions about more than one location. I heard you suggest perhaps for the general, just eager to hear your opinions. How many and where would you put them based on your thoughts on stuff?
Yeah, I think there's a value of having more locations that are out in the neighborhoods. I mean, I think if we did a second EDR location, there was some discussion about that a few years ago. If you did that, you probably want it at Yale, like on campus. But this is a little bit different. This is about having an early voting location that's out in the neighborhoods. If you just have one additional location, I think it makes it difficult kind of politically because, if it's in Alder Festa's ward, then, Alder Singh has this right to ask, well, why isn't it in the Hill? Why isn't it in my ward? So, there are all these equity concerns. So, if you could do it, for example, like at every branch library, I think that would go a long way towards, creating more voting options and accessibility to people. Well, we did a survey that New Haven Votes Coalition last or 2 years ago when they were writing this bill, HB 5004 about early voting, and we asked what people wanted to see in the bill, and the majority of people didn't say, well, we want 14 days of early voting, or the most important thing to us is the number of days. No, they said what they wanted was flexible hours, so that if you're a shift worker or something like that, you can vote later in the evening or very early in the morning. You want flexible hours or multiple locations. They said those were much more important criteria for them than the total number of days. Did that get incorporated into the legislation that was passed by the state? Not really, but they did put this section in section 1 about municipalities over 20,000, if they choose they can have multiple locations. And again, there's lots of considerations that go into that funding and so forth, but I think it's something we might want to consider.
Thank you very much for the answer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Good, for your testimony. So 46 other states have some sort of early voting. So 46 states have experience with that initial rollout of early voting. And so given your experience, do you have any recommendations in terms of outreach and promotion that are the highest yield and also really prioritize equitable distribution of information?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a magic bullet solution here. What a lot of states do is they have different things in their laws, like, a lot of states have ballot referenda and stuff like that, and that means that they send out voter guides to everybody who's a registered voter, so everybody gets something that tells them about the upcoming elections and explains what's on the ballot and tells them, all of the arguments for and against different ballot referenda. We obviously don't do that in Connecticut. We don't have initiatives and ballot referenda except the constitutional amendment. So, I do think some kind of mailing, whether it's the part of the postcards that we mail out to people before the election, or some other kind of citywide mailing. I think that's probably most likely to reach most people. But there's so many different nonprofits in New Haven, as we all know. There's this network of community management teams, which I think are a great resource. But again, there's no magic bullet solution. I think we just kind of need to all do what we can. It's kind of an all hands on deck approach.
Alder Streeter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question to you, then I have a statement. So my question is, you saying you feel that every library in the city should be open for voting?
For early voting. I'm not recommending that. I'm saying that is the kind of thing that the state law envisioned when they allow municipalities to do that if they chose. And that's how most of the other places that do early voting, they don't have one centralized location in that jurisdiction. They have multiple, usually they're called voting centers or something like that, but they're at a local municipal facility, a senior center, a police substation, a library, and they have several of them within that jurisdiction.
Right, because my question to you was, I thought I heard you say that they should have multiple libraries open. So I'm asking you, was that your suggestion, or what did we get that at from? You saying that every library, or how many libraries are you saying around the city, should be open for the early voting? Is my question to you.
Yeah, I think if you look at the geographical distribution of the libraries in New Haven, I think there's you're going to provide better access for a much broader cross section of the community if you did it in Fairhaven and in Dixwell and the Stetson and in the Wilson Library.
So these are suggestions that Mr. Good is providing us as food for thought to say,
Right.
Hey, you may want to consider the libraries as different locations throughout the city for the early voting, but only for the early voting. And
Right.
again, these are things that we can talk about as a board with the registrar, with the clerk's office to determine what the best solution is to get more voters, residents voting, preferably in their neighborhoods or close to their neighborhoods versus just one location.
Okay, I just wanted clarification on what he actually was saying, every library. Some people don't feel comfortable with going to libraries in the area, and I think that they would feel more comfortable coming with something that they're not like downtown. People are more adept to come down here than, some areas people are, caged in the house, to be honest, so.
And let's not forget, we have the option of absentee ballots too. So if there are folks that can't get out to vote, they should be filling out the applications for an absentee ballot.
Just one piece or concern to that, early voting, that when you're doing the early voting at different locations, remember those ballots have to be secured. And you'll be transporting them to one central location for safekeeping. I mean, that's something to consider too. The more locations you have, to me, it's greater the risk. And it depends on how many residents are really using early voting. But consider that as well. You have to take those ballots and transport them.
Did the Secretary of the State, give any examples of what the other states are doing, the other 46 states are doing?
Not that I know of, not yet. I mean, I haven't been on the Zoom where they talked about that piece, but I'm sure we do have a meeting coming up.
So maybe we should ask that question about those concerns, because this isn't new. There's other states that have implemented this and have been doing it, so maybe there's things that we can learn and apply ourselves if we feel it's feasible for our residents. And, and I feel like the primary will be a good pilot. I hate to use that, but it'll give us a good indication of how it works and what we need to improve. And if we could implement multiple locations for the actual presidential election, that would be also something to consider.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this topic? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this topic? Please come forward. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this topic? Okay, seeing no one, thank you again for being here. I know it is a busy time for you both, and we appreciate it. And let's maybe meet again, even if it's not here, just discuss some of these concerns, some of these suggestions that have come before us. So thank you both for being here. Appreciate it.
And my counterpart, Marlene, sends her apology for not being able to make it. Life has been lifing. So
understood. Thank you.
Thank you guys and for all your work.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we will move on with our agenda with item number 1, which is the community development for remediation for the South Orange Street. So if I can have economic development come forward and anyone else that is speaking on this item. Good evening. And once again, I will just remind everyone to state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam Chair. Steve Fontana, Deputy Director, Economic Development. I reside at 23 Angel Place in North Haven.
Good evening. My name is Peter Calkins. I'm with Ancora Partners. Our headquarters are at 1625 High Street in Washington, D.C.
Ellen Rosenberg, 212 West Elm Street, New Haven, Connecticut, with the Office of Economic Development.
So, Madam Chair Festa, members of the CSCP Committee, good evening, and thank you very much for entertaining us this evening and for your consideration of the item before you. As you all probably know, we're very pleased that Ancora is pursuing a laboratory development in New Haven, and we're very pleased to work with Peter and his colleagues to try to support that effort. Helen can speak with you about the details of the item that you have before us this evening, and Mr. Calkins is here to answer any questions you may have about the status of the project or anything else that relates to Ancora. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Just provide an overview, and Peter can provide the details. Ancora is proposing a 277,000 square foot lab and technical office space building on parcel 1C, also known as 265 South Orange Street, on the former Coliseum site, kind of behind where the housing is going up now. There is a requirement as part of the construction to excavate and dispose of fill material that is somewhat contaminated. it could just stay in the ground if the site was gonna continue to be covered with pavement, but since they'll have to dig that up, that is the cost that will be partially offset by this grant if it's offered by the State Department of Economic and Community Development under its Brownfield Municipal Grant Program, through which the city applies for funds that it can either use on its own properties for projects or can pass through to a developer or development partner. And in this case, Ancora would be the development partner. And we're seeking approval to apply for and accept the grant and for Ancora to be accepted as the development partner for the project.
Like that, anything?
Sure, just briefly, this is a site that we have acquired from the team that is led by Spinnaker that is developing it controls the rest of the Coliseum block and is developing the residential that's going up on parcel 1A. It's a building that is similar intent to the kinds of buildings that Carter Winstanley has done at 100 and 101 College. Kelly Clark is our architect. They've been pleased to work with a local architect, and they've been great to work with. The building is essentially shovel-ready, ready for construction, pending securing enough leasing to satisfy the needs of our investors. And we're in the process of talking with several different parties about trying to hit that threshold. But in the meantime, we're trying to get everything ready and organized to be able to launch. And the excavation of the site and the removal of the soil would be pretty much the first step that we would take. So,
what type of remediation is this? Because is it really?
It's really, I mean, Helen's right. It's essentially crushed up Coliseum concrete. And it is soil that could easily stay there if it was going to remain a parking lot. It's simply, when we remove it, it can't go to a greenfield, pristine place. It has to go to a controlled location.
And what determines the amount? Is it square footage? It's a funny number. That's why it's $999,000.
That's driven by the fact that in the state of Connecticut, if you accept a grant for $1 million or more, there are a lot of strings that come with it. And so those strings, we're going to have some economic impacts that we're going to make it harder for us to do the building. And so we drew the line at $999 with the collaboration and the cooperation of both the city and the state Department of Economic and Community Development.
The cleanup cost is higher than that, but they'll be committing other funds.
Okay, so the purpose is just to avoid other, let's say, bureaucratic disruptions.
Yes.
That you kept it under the 1 million, but the cost is actually over.
Yeah, the cost is probably in the $2 to $3 million range. It's not a huge number. This is not a major brown.
Right.
This is not a major super fund kind of environment. But there are some costs that the state would like to help with. So.
Yeah, and I know our department, particularly Helen, has a good record of getting these funds, but if for some reason these funds do not become available, will you still proceed? Because I know you already, had the groundbreaking for this site, and we want to make sure that it moves forward. So in case this does not go through for some reason, will you still move forward?
Yes, this 999 would not make or break the project.
What's the total project cost? It's
220 million.
Right.
Something in that ballpark. So that's all.
Okay. So we're excited about this project, obviously, and look forward to seeing more development happening on these lots. At this point, I'll open it up to my colleagues on the committee for additional questions. Alder Flores.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the presentation. I just had a little question about the proposed building itself, the Life Science and Technology Office Building. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about, for example, like the energy profile or some of the architectural features, whether there's like a sustainability aspect of it. Yeah, I'm a new alder, so haven't quite read up on this proposal.
So I'm just going to remind committee members that the agenda item is actually the approval of this.
Right.
So if you could, I will allow it, but
Right.
just for future reference, we try to stick to the topic and not
Gotcha, thanks, yeah.
go
Makes sense,
overboard
Chairman.
because it could, anyways, I will,
So
give us the elevator.
briefly to respond, yes, sustainability is one of Ancora's, core missions. The building is targeted for a LEED Gold certification. Yet can't be finally determined until after it's built, but that's, that's the goal, and we're quite comfortable with that target. The building includes a number of amenity features, interior bike storage, showers, lockers, fitness room, all of that, kind of stuff, a conference center. And then about 8 floors of space devoted to life science and lab and office use. And we do think it's a key location, coming into downtown New Haven. So we worked with Kelly Clark to try and do something that's pretty striking. Every floor has at least some access to outdoor open space.
Yes, that's great.
I want to thank you for using our local architects as well, and hopefully local developers. I know it's harder on a bigger scale, but we appreciate it as New Haven representatives and residents of the city that you support our local.
They've been great. They've been great to work with.
They're wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions from committee members? Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here this evening. Thank you for your presentation, and good luck with getting this grant and the whole project. And of course, we're here to help answer questions or help out in any way that we can, as our departments know.
Great, we appreciate that. Happy to leave that behind. That's a standard leasing brochure that we put together that we're in the process of updating, but it's got some general information on the building in it. So.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you,
All right,
members.
thank you very much.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this topic? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Please come forward. And for a third time, if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Okay, seeing no one, we can move on to our next item. So Director Winter, you are up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam Chair and members of the City Services Environmental Policy Committee. Stephen Winter, 459 Dixwell Avenue. I'm the Executive Director for Climate and Sustainability, and I'm excited to come before you to give you background information, ask approval for a resolution authorizing the mayor to apply for an exempt funding from the state's Diesel Emissions Reduction Act program for an electric refuse vehicle. So that's the change that we need to make. Originally, when we were filing with the Board of Alders submission, we were looking into getting a street sweeping vehicle. The thinking being that we have an electric refuse vehicle, which should be arriving soon, that we applied for using DERA funds 2 years ago. We were successful, and that actually was a product of the electrification resolution that the Board of Alders passed, which set a goal for the city to electrify its vehicle fleet by 2030, and asked the chief administrative officer to study refuse fleet electrification. Why refuse vehicles? Well, they're really big, they carry a lot of stuff, and they start and stop constantly because they have to go house to house. So they spend a lot of time in our neighborhoods burning diesel fuel, which is really bad for health, particularly respiratory issues and asthma. The good thing about electric vehicles is, like hybrids, they have regenerative brakes. So every time you start and stop, you can recapture about 90% of that energy. So our refuse vehicles are really good application for vehicle electrification for all those reasons, and because there are predictable routes, right? We're traveling the same route. It's not very long each day. Anyway, that's what we applied for in the past. Hopefully we'll be here soon. Can't say exactly when. And we were looking at a street sweeper, but due to the grant criteria, which has to look at miles traveled, because the refuse vehicles are on the roads year-round versus the street sweepers, which are sort of semi-seasonal, we decided to apply for another refuse vehicle. But we are looking into other ways we could maybe get an electric street sweeper, because they also spend a lot of time slowly driving through our neighborhoods, burning diesel fuel and polluting the air. So that's the change that's before you. And there's a red line of the resolution, so we'll need to make an amendment by substitution. But to give you some background on the grant program, so like the name maybe implies, it's about reducing diesel emissions. So that's the particulate matter and hazardous air pollutants that come with burning diesel fuel. So we talked about how that's really localized in our neighborhoods with these types of vehicles. And there's no tailpipe emissions with an electric vehicle. So those emissions are completely avoided in the neighborhoods. The grant funds 45% of the cost of a vehicle. So on the fiscal impact statement, you'll see that the city share would be about $300,000. To put that in perspective, a new diesel vehicle is about $330,000. So with the grant, the city is actually saving money if we get the grant. And then on top of that, thanks to President Biden, there is a direct payment that we can apply for an additional $40,000 off of the price of the vehicle. And then on top of that, it costs less to operate because you're not purchasing diesel fuel, and there are less pieces in the vehicle to maintain. So it's from a maintenance perspective, it's more straightforward. So it's good for air quality, it's good for our health, and it should be good for our fiscal health as well. I think that sums it up. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. When you said we need to make an amendment by substitution, we just need to replace the electric street sweeping vehicle to an electric refuse vehicle.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and that is the only thing that needs to be amended, is the vehicle itself.
Yes, and there's also a change in one of the whereas clauses where it just highlights that it's slightly less than the cost of a comparable diesel vehicle. If you don't need to make that change, but
okay,
we can if we want.
So just the red line items that are okay. Couple questions. One is, what is the battery life of these vehicles? Because we know that the refuse vehicles are out there all the time. I mean, they're used almost every day. Sometimes they have to go back to some residents if they forgot to pick up any refuse. So what is the battery life? What is the cost of electric, and are we set up for it?
Yeah, so we are working on getting new charging stations installed to accommodate both the city's Chevy Bolts and Nissan Leafs, and then also the incoming refuse vehicle. So we will be set up for charging these. And if you think about a refuse vehicle leaving the refuse garage maybe around 5 or 6, and then coming back early in the afternoon. It leaves about 2/3 of the day where it can recharge. So there's plenty of time with a good level 2 charger, which are, for anywhere from like 5 to 20 kilowatts in their charging rate. If you have there's one that's about 20 kilowatts, that can put in 20 kilowatt hours of energy every hour. So in about 10 hours, we should be able to fully recharge the vehicle, but the vehicle won't be fully depleting its battery every day. So we should be set up to have a healthy buffer there in terms of the battery life with the relatively high speed charger we have and with the size of the battery. So it's oversized to be able to meet the demands of the route that it's on.
And the cost of, so it sounds like there's a cost to the setup. There's a cost to, obviously, electric, the charging station itself and delivery of electricity or electric power. What is the cost to all of that? And will we be implementing any type of, oh my God, my brain, solar panels?
That
Brain
is
fog.
yeah, no, that is a
Steve,
great.
it's real.
That is a great question. So, the United Illuminating, not by virtue of their own good nature, but because of the program that the state authorized them to set up, can help subsidize charging station installations. So for homeowners, property owners, if you're installing a level 2 charger, they'll subsidize $500 for the make ready work to get you ready for the installation, and then $500 for the charger itself. So in this case, being more of a fleet operator, I believe they cover all of the make ready work, and then they also provide a subsidy for half the cost of the charging station. But the level 2 charging stations are relatively inexpensive. I don't have the number in front of me, but it's maybe a couple $1,000s, if that. So there's not a big installation cost for that. Where installation costs would go up would be if you were installing a high-speed charger. So if you wanted a DC fast charger, or what's called a level 3 charger, those can be tens of thousands of dollars, and then they're more complicated to install. So that's something that the city should we should be looking into that as well and setting that up. And that way, if you do run into a situation where a vehicle gets really low on power or energy, you can plug it in and a matter of minutes it can get back to where you need it to be. So that's another cost in terms of infrastructure, but that's something that you can share across the whole fleet since you're not going to be using it for every vehicle. So I know the city engineer has been working on developing this package of charging equipment, but I'm not familiar with all the details of it. He could give you a more expansive explanation.
And solar panels?
Good. That's a great question and a timely question. So probably around this time last year in the spring, or no, it was over the summer, we had brought an item related at the end of the summer about solar installation. So this was over some school parking lots at Hill Central and Beecher School, and then also the Q House and the city landfill. So the landfill paperwork actually just got finished last week, in part because we didn't really have legal access to the landfill because we had sold the transfer station to the Solid Waste Authority. So there were some mechanics that we had to work out. But that project is proceeding.
So you know what? I probably went too far. I was indicating solar panels for this project. Well,
so
DPW install, because I'm happy about all that. We heard about all that.
Yeah. So the relationship there is that in that arrangement, we're essentially a landlord who's hosting a solar facility. We get paid for it. But there may be additional room on the landfill, which is next to the refuse garage, where we could look at making another solar array that could power refuse vehicles.
Oh, awesome.
So that's a long-winded way of saying, yes, we may be able to do another round of it, similar to what we've done before.
So it's not anything definite, but we can look into it.
Yeah, so as the solar company assesses the landfill, we'll get a better idea of how much of it is usable space and whether we could do another installation that could help power the refuse vehicles.
And, I will open it up to, where's the funding coming from? Because you mentioned the 45% and then 300K from city.
Yeah.
Where's the city funding coming from?
Rolling stock or potentially other sources and uses was what management budgets at. So they're looking to cobble together funds between rolling stock and other sources and uses.
Okay, so we have the funding for it.
Yes.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions? Alder Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may, I have two small questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Director Winter. Two small questions. One is, I thought it was really interesting that the electric refuse vehicle is forecasted to have decreased operational costs. Do you have a sense of how much relative to a diesel?
That is a good question. It kind of depends on what your assumptions are around prices of fuel. So the last few years, diesel prices have been really like $5. So yeah, there's a relative cost of diesel and electricity, and then like the regenerative braking system I mentioned. Your brakes tend to last longer with electric and hybrid vehicles. You don't have oil changes, and then there are, I want to say, about half as many physically moving parts. So they are like simpler systems. So in theory, you have less things that can fail. I'm just going to see if I can pull up any additional information on the potential cost savings. There's a company called Round Trip EV that this is like their business, is doing refuse fleet electrification. So they had taken a look, like a broad look at a city fleet. I'm just trying to see if they have easy to access number. So they were estimating that there'd be roughly $40,000 in fuel savings per year from going from diesel to electricity.
I'm sorry.
$40,000.
And that's just for fuel savings, not counting the maintenance now.
Right. So again, I want to know exactly, or look at exactly what the assumptions are there.
And then my second question, and Madam Chair, please let me know if this is a question that's out of the scope, but just referring to the electrification resolution, how far are we, what's our percentage in terms of the city? Where are we at so far in terms of the percentage becoming electric vehicles?
We're in the early stages, like single digits. I think probably between 1% and 2% right now, but I think we're going to see that accelerate as more electric vehicles become available. So I don't think it's impossible that we meet the goal, but it's 2024. We've got a limited amount of time, but I think it's something between the new Inflation Reduction Act incentives, programs like this one, other grant opportunities, and then this looking at the city capital allocations, that we can do our best to get there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have one question. Go ahead, Alder Flores.
Thank you for the recap. In terms of, if everything goes through with the money and the grant, and seeing that you said that the city portion of the budget was already figured out with it, and sorry if you already mentioned this, but when would we expect the purchasing of the electric refuse vehicle and see it in operation?
That's a great question. I think it typically takes DEEP about 2 months to issue decisions. And then I'm sure there's some paperwork to do. So maybe a quarter, we would know if we were able to receive the funds. And it's a reimbursement program. So we would then order a vehicle, and then the big question is how long it will take for the vehicle to be built. Times have improved since we ordered our first vehicle in 2021. So it was a pandemic. There were lots of supply chain issues. And so, all told, the whole process took about 2 years. But I think that I would imagine maybe between 15, 18 months if it takes about a year for the vehicle to be built and delivered.
I guess those would be some of the challenges that we face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any further questions? Alder Streeter.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Director Winters, as I always say, you always seem to come up with something that fascinates me. So you always be diligent in the things that you propose. So keep it up.
Thank you.
Any further questions from committee members? Alder Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just an idea that I'm curious about. I think to Alder Streeter's point, I think this is fascinating. I really hope we as a city receive the funds to purchase this vehicle. I'm not sure how exciting an electric refuse vehicle is relative to a fire truck, but I know that sometimes fire trucks go to schools and or go to events and to showcase both on the employment side, what the job looks like, as well as just the features of the vehicle. So just an idea that comes to mind is if we do receive the funds to purchase this vehicle, I'm curious if an activity around understanding how electric vehicles work could be something that could be a partnership with schools or other community organizations.
I love that idea. Why not? I think electric trash trucks are cool. I think they're maybe almost as cool as fire trucks.
Well, you know what? Bringing them to the schools actually encourages the kids to go home and teach their parents as well and educate them. I know my kids used to come home all the time with different ideas on how, and we have a waterway. So bringing it to the attention of our students is a start.
There are some municipalities that do not have electric fire trucks.
Oh.
I think Los Angeles has one, and street sweepers. So, fire trucks is a challenge just because they got to carry all this water, but there are folks who are kind of spearheading it. So someday.
Thank you. We're getting there.
We're getting there.
Any other questions from committee members? Okay, seeing none, is there anyone? Thank you, as always, for being here. I'm sure we will have a busy year with you, and we look forward to more conversations like this. So thank you for being here. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Please come forward. Seeing none, do I hear a motion to close the public portion of this meeting?
So moved.
The motion has been moved. Do I hear a second?
A second.
All in favor of closing the public portion, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? Public portion is closed. You know what, I'm getting my papers in order here. I know we went out of order, but we can start with, do I hear a motion to move item number 1?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to move item number 1.
Second.
Item has been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I think this site is for the development of this buyer center and for the business and
Sorry to be out of order. Are we supposed to stop the recording?
No, the meeting is still, we have not adjourned yet,
okay.
so
Apologies.
no worries.
and this is a grant from the state to mediate the the soil remediation for this property, and I'm in favor of this.
Thank you. Any further discussion on item number 1, which is the funding for remediation for the South Orange Street project?
I think that, it's needed and, for it also.
Okay, and just a reminder, this is a grant, so hopefully they will be given these funds to help expedite this property and will also help, it sounds like, with the investors that he mentioned regarding this project. So any help, you know what, this is an investment for us as well as the city of New Haven. So any type of development that occurs to attract folks to come into our beautiful city, we don't need to be convinced of the great city we live in, but I think word is out that we're a pretty good city. So people are attractive to it, and things like this will only make it more attractive. So I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this. And if there's any other further discussion, we can take a vote. All right, all in favor of item number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to move item number 2.
Second.
Item has been moved and seconded. Item number 2 is in regard to the 10-year contract that Mr. Zinn presented to us. Any discussion on this item? Any discussion? Okay, it sounds like this is a process that just takes out a lot of other bureaucratic paperwork for at least the 10 years. And as you know, Engineer Giovanni Zinn mentioned, it is something, all the projects will come to us anyway. So we don't have to worry about passing this. Everything comes before the Board of Alders, no matter what. So all in favor of this item, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Item carries.
Madam Chair, item number 3, I'd like to make an amendment by substitution.
Would you like to move it first?
Madam Chair, pardon me, I'd like to move item number 3.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded, and I believe my vice chair was looking to make an amendment by substitution.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make an amendment by substitution to this item, from street sweeping to refuge and all the red lines are added to that section.
Okay, so I just want committee members to know that right now we will be, once we get a second, we will be voting on the amendment. And the amendment, just to clarify, is to change the vehicle from an electric street sweeping vehicle to an electric refuse vehicle, and I believe just a couple more sentences.
Second.
And it's been seconded. Any discussion on the amendment only?
Just making sure that I think this is a fabulous idea. I congratulate Director Winter for his leadership and creativity. Everything I heard was really exciting. I think it's just really great and look forward to publicity about it and understanding the situation.
Great. So this amendment, we're going to be voting on the amendment only, and then once we vote on the amendment, we'll go to the amended. You're fine.
So you got
That's okay. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? The amendment carries. Now we will go back to the original item as amended. Is there any discussion on that item? We heard from Alder Marks, which is all positive. Any other discussion?
Yes.
Alder Streeter?
Yes, I feel that it's definitely needed. Like you said, it would save money. And I think that more electric, like you said, cut down the pollution. And so we need things like this for better health also.
Any other, Alder Singh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank Director Winter for doing the research and going after this grant and able to facilitate purchasing of these rescue vehicle. And this is in terms of pollution, etc. With the diesel, and in our city with asthmatic controls and so forth that goes on. And I think this is a fabulous idea to go after the vehicle. And there's a grant coming, and along with this, and with our fleet turnaround, there are finance built into this. So this won't cost us anything at this time. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Singh. Of course, we have to remember this is applying for this grant. Let's hope we get it, fingers crossed. I think it's moving in the right direction for our city and for our environment. And I encourage my colleagues to vote in favor of this resolution. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of item 3, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Items carried. And Missy, do we have to close the workshop? Read and file? We don't have to do anything with that, right? Okay. All right. Before I hear a motion to adjourn, I just want to thank everyone for being here this evening. It's our first CSEP meeting of this term. It is my third term chairing this, and unfortunately it'll be my last one because we're only allowed to chair for 3 terms. But I look forward to working with you all. We have some veterans here. We have some new members on CSEP and some new alders who are now members of CSEP. So welcome. We are a busy committee. And your presence here, of course, is always needed and merited and welcomed, and your questions are as well. So, and, you know, just mark it on your calendar. First Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. is our CSEP meeting. And I don't know, my vice chair, would you like to add anything before we adjourn?
Well, welcome my colleagues to the committee and looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Okay, so March will be our next meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion for adjourn.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded for adjournment. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Great. The yeas have it. We are adjourned.
Oh.